keep your dirty black hands off my things." Vivian Ashford's voice exploded in the back of the Mercedes. Alden Thornton's hand froze mid-reach toward her falling phone. She grabbed it herself, fury blazing in her eyes. Then she seized her coffee cup and hurled it at his head. Hot liquid splashed across the back of his neck, soaking his white uniform shirt. The cup cracked against his shoulder. "You're just a driver, boy. Act like it." Her palm slammed into the back of his head, shoving him forward against the steering wheel. Coffee dripped down Alden's collar onto the leather seat. His hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white. He stared straight ahead at downtown traffic. His lips moved silently. A single word. Foreign. Barely audible. Behind him, Vivian screamed into her phone, "Find me an interpreter in 90 minutes or my $2 billion deal dies!" She never looked at him once. 4 hours earlier, before sunrise, Alden's alarm had buzzed at 4:30 a.m. His small apartment in Queens was still dark. He pulled on running clothes and stepped into the cold morning air. His breath came out in clouds. As he ran through empty streets, white earbuds played a Mandarin podcast, a professor from Beijing explaining tonal pronunciation. Alden's lips moved with the words, matching the sounds perfectly. First tone, second tone, third tone, fourth. Back home, he showered and made coffee. At his kitchen table, he opened his laptop. 3 tabs, Al Jazeera in Arabic. He read the headlines, scanning the text with practiced ease. Le Monde in French, business section, European markets, Der Spiegel in German, technology news. His phone buzzed. A text from his daughter Sarah at Johns Hopkins Medical School. "Dad, can you help me pronounce this term for my presentation? It's in medical Latin." He smiled and called her, walked her through the pronunciation in 30 seconds. Latin had been his 4th language, learned decades ago. "You're the best, Dad. Love you. Love you too, sweetheart. Kill that presentation." He hung up and checked the time. 6:15 a.m. time to get ready for work. Alden pulled his driver's uniform from the closet. White shirt, black pants, black tie. He buttoned the shirt slowly, staring at himself in the mirror. 22 years as a senior diplomatic translator for the State Department. 3 years driving a car. He picked up his coffee and took a sip. It had gone cold. By 6:45, he was out the door, heading to the Vanguard Dynamics executive parking garage. Another day of being invisible. Vivian Ashford built Vanguard Dynamics from nothing. 15 years ago, she was a programmer with 1 laptop and a dream. Now she ran a tech empire worth $3 billion. Artificial intelligence, cloud infrastructure, quantum computing patents. Her company's technology powered everything from hospital systems to military defense networks. But empires can fall faster than they rise. 3 months ago, her CFO walked into her office with numbers that made her stomach drop. Cash flow crisis, debt payments due, contracts delayed. The company had 90 days before serious problems started. 60 days before bankruptcy became real. She needed a merger. Fast. Something massive enough to inject capital and credibility. Then the opportunity appeared. A Chinese tech firm wanted American patents. A European investment consortium wanted Asian market access. Vivian had what both sides needed. The deal was perfect. $2 billion. It would save everything. But it required something she didn't have. Flawless communication across 3 continents, 3 legal systems, 3 languages. She'd hired the best. Morrison Translation Services. $20,000 for a 3-person team. Mandarin specialist, French legal expert, German business translator. Yesterday, the Mandarin specialist called. Family emergency. He was out. This morning, the French expert quit. Contract dispute. Something about overtime pay. An hour ago, the German translator canceled. No explanation. Just gone. Vivian stood in her corner office on the 32nd floor, staring out at the New York skyline. Her reflection looked back at her. Designer suit, perfect hair, a woman who controlled everything, except she controlled nothing right now. Her phone buzzed. Text from Garrett Sullivan, her COO. Chinese delegation lands at JFK in 90 minutes. European team already at the Peninsula Hotel. They're expecting the meeting at 2 p.m. What's the plan? Vivian's hands shook as she typed back. Working on it. She wasn't working on anything. She was drowning. She grabbed her bag and headed for the elevator. Her driver would be waiting downstairs. At least something in her life still worked on schedule. She had no idea that the solution to everything was already sitting in her parking garage, behind the wheel of her Mercedes, waiting. Alden arrived at Vanguard Dynamics at 6:50 a.m., 10 minutes early, like always. He parked in the employee lot and walked to the executive garage. His job was simple: keep the fleet clean, drive Vivian wherever she needed to go, stay quiet, stay out of the way. He started with her Mercedes S-Class, wiped down the exterior, vacuumed the interior, checked the tire pressure, filled the gas tank. At 8:15, executives started arriving. James Preston, VP of Operations, walked past Alden without a glance, phone pressed to his ear, talking about quarterly projections. Catherine Morris, head of legal, brushed by him carrying 2 coffees. She bumped his shoulder. Coffee sloshed. She didn't apologize, didn't look back. At 8:30, the morning security briefing happened near the garage entrance. 8 executives stood in a circle. Alden was cleaning a tire 3 feet away. They talked about sensitive information, client names, contract details, merger discussions. They spoke freely, as if he wasn't there, as if he was furniture. One executive, Randall Hayes, glanced at Alden once, then turned to the group. "Can we talk about this somewhere more private?" Another executive laughed. "Relax, Randall. It's just the driver." Just the driver. Alden kept wiping the tire. His face showed nothing. At 9:45, Vivian's assistant, Bridget Kendall, came down to the garage. She needed Vivian's car brought to the front entrance. Executive meeting running late. "Hey, you!" she called out. Not his name, never his name. Alden stood up. "Yes, ma'am?" "Bring the car around, 5 minutes." "Of course." She walked away, heels clicking on concrete, already forgotten him. Alden climbed into the Mercedes and started the engine. The dashboard clock read 9:48 a.m. In 4 hours and 12 minutes, everything would change. The Mercedes pulled up to the front entrance at exactly 10 a.m. Alden stepped out and opened the rear door. Vivian emerged from the building like a storm. Her assistant Bridget rushed behind her, clutching an iPad and 3 phones. "Get in!" Vivian snapped at Bridget. Both women slid into the back seat. Alden closed the door and returned to the driver's seat. He adjusted the rearview mirror slightly, enough to see without being obvious. "Tell me you found someone," Vivian said, her voice tight. Bridget scrolled through her iPad. "I called 18 translation services. Every single one is booked. There's some international summit at the UN this week. Every qualified interpreter in New York is already contracted. What about Boston, Philadelphia? Same situation. The summit has them all locked down." Vivian pressed her fingers against her temples. "This cannot be happening. Not today." "I found one possibility," Bridget said carefully. "A freelancer, but he only speaks Mandarin and English, no French, no German, and he's asking 30,000 for the day." 30,000? For half the job? He knows we're desperate. Vivian's phone rang. She looked at the screen and her face went pale. "It's Garrett," she answered. Put it on speaker. "Vivian, we have a problem." Garrett Sullivan's voice filled the car. "The Chinese delegation just landed. They're asking why we changed the meeting location. We didn't change anything. Someone sent them an email from a Vanguard domain saying the meeting moved to our Westchester office. They're already in a car heading north." Vivian's hand clenched into a fist. "Who sent that email?" "It is tracking it now, but Vivian, that's not the worst part." Silence. "The European consortium is threatening to walk. They heard about our translator situation. They think it shows poor planning, unprofessional. They're questioning if we're serious about this deal." Vivian closed her eyes. "How did they find out?" "Someone talked. Probably one of the translation services we contacted." "Word travels fast in this industry. Fix it, Garrett. I don't care how." "I'm trying, but they want assurances. They want to know we have qualified translators, native-level fluency, legal expertise, technical knowledge. They won't accept phone apps or machine translation." "I know what they want." Vivian's voice cracked. "I just don't have it." The line went quiet for 3 seconds. "Then we're done," Garrett said softly. "Without translators, this meeting is dead. Without this meeting, the company is dead. We have maybe 90 minutes to pull off a miracle." The call ended. Vivian stared at her phone. Her hands were shaking. Bridget sat frozen, not knowing what to say. In the front seat, Alden kept his eyes on the road, his hands steady on the wheel, but his mind was racing. "Take me to the office," Vivian said, her voice hollow. "I need to think." Alden nodded and pulled into traffic. The car fell silent except for Vivian's fingers tapping frantically on her phone screen. 20 minutes later, they arrived back at Vanguard Dynamics. Vivian and Bridget got out without a word and disappeared into the building. Alden parked the Mercedes in the executive garage. He checked the time. 10:35 a.m. His phone buzzed. A call from Sarah. He answered. "Hey, sweetheart, how'd the presentation go?" "Dad, I crushed it." Sarah's voice was bright with excitement. "Professor Chen said it was the best presentation in the class." "That's my girl. I knew you would. But I have a huge favor to ask. I have this research paper due tomorrow, and there's a section I need to cite from a Chinese medical journal. The translation software is giving me garbage. Can you help?" Alden smiled. "Send me the text. I'll look at it." His phone dinged. A screenshot appeared. Dense Chinese characters, medical terminology, complex syntax. He read it aloud, translating smoothly into English. His pronunciation was perfect. Native-level Beijing Mandarin with the proper medical terminology in English. "Wait, let me get this down," Sarah said. Alden continued, switching between Mandarin and English effortlessly, explaining nuances, clarifying meaning. His voice carried the confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Behind him, a door opened, footsteps on concrete. Alden didn't notice. He was focused on helping his daughter, reading another passage in Mandarin, explaining a complex medical concept that had no direct English equivalent. Bridget Kendall stood 15 feet away, frozen at the entrance to the stairwell. Her mouth hung open. She'd come back down to grab Vivian's forgotten iPad from the car. Instead, she was listening to the driver, the man they'd all ignored for 3 years, speaking flawless Mandarin. Technical Mandarin, the kind you learned at universities, not from apps. Alden finished the translation. "Does that help, sweetheart?" "Dad, you're amazing. Thank you so much." "Anytime, love you. Love you too." He hung up and pocketed his phone, leaned back against the car, closed his eyes for a moment. Bridget's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. Her fingers flew across the screen. A text to Garrett Sullivan. "You're not going to believe this. Get down to the garage. Now!" She stared at Alden. He still hadn't seen her. Everything was about to change. Garrett Sullivan took the stairs 2 at a time. Bridget's text made no sense. The driver speaks Mandarin? He burst through the stairwell door into the garage. Bridget stood near the Mercedes, staring at Alden. "Show me," Garrett said. Bridget walked over. "Excuse me, that phone call. Were you speaking Chinese?" Alden straightened up. "Mandarin. Yes, ma'am." Garrett stepped closer. "Fluently?" "Yes, sir." "What else do you speak?" Alden hesitated. 3 years of invisibility made him careful. "Several languages, sir." "How many?" "9, sir." The garage went silent. 9 languages, Garrett repeated. "Which ones?" "Mandarin, Cantonese, French, German, Spanish, Arabic, Portuguese, Japanese, and English." Garrett's mind raced. "Where did you learn 9 languages?" "Georgetown, Stanford. 22 years with the State Department as a senior diplomatic translator." Bridget's hand covered her mouth. Garrett pulled out his phone, called Vivian. "What?" she answered. "I'm in the garage. I need you down here, right now." "Garrett, I don't have time. Trust me, get down here." 2 minutes later, Vivian stepped out of the elevator, exhausted, defeated. She saw Garrett and Bridget standing with Alden. "What is this about?" Garrett turned to Alden. "Tell her." Alden looked at Vivian. "I speak 9 languages, ma'am, including Mandarin, French, and German." Vivian blinked. "You what?" "I'm a former State Department translator, senior level." 22 years. The words hung in the air. Vivian's eyes narrowed. "You've been driving my car for 3 years and you speak 9 languages?" "Yes, ma'am." "Why didn't you say anything?" Alden's jaw tightened. "I applied for translation positions when I started here, ma'am. 3 years ago. I was told the company wasn't hiring." Vivian turned to Garrett. "Is this true?" Garrett nodded. "I checked our records. Alden Thornton applied for senior translator in 2022. HR rejected him. Too qualified for entry level, too expensive for senior level. He applied for driver 2 weeks later. We hired him." Vivian looked back at Alden. Really looked at him. "You can translate technical documents? Legal contracts? Business negotiations?" "Yes, ma'am. I've handled G7 summits, NATO conferences, trade agreements." Garrett stepped forward. "Vivian, he's our solution." Vivian's face hardened. "Absolutely not." "What?" "I won't put a driver in front of billion-dollar partners." We'll look desperate. We are desperate. Find another way. There is no other way. Vivian's voice turned to ice. I said no. She walked back to the elevator. Garrett watched her go, then looked at Alden. I'm sorry. Alden nodded once. But the clock kept ticking. 60 minutes left. 30 minutes later, Vivian sat in the conference room on the 32nd floor. Garrett and Bridget flanked her. A massive screen covered the far wall. On screen, 2 video windows. Left side, 5 Chinese executives at the Peninsula Hotel. Right side, 4 European consortium members in a different suite. Between them, chaos. We are not comfortable proceeding without proper translation, said the lead European representative, a German woman with sharp eyes. This reflects poorly on Vanguard's capabilities. Vivian forced a smile. I assure you we have a solution. A highly qualified translator will arrive shortly. A lie. But she had to buy time. The Chinese CEO spoke in Mandarin. His assistant translated in choppy English. Mr. Zhang says this delay is concerning. He questions whether Vanguard is serious. We are absolutely serious, Vivian said. Let's begin with the contract overview. She nodded to Garrett. He pulled up the first slide. Dense legal text, English on the left, blank spaces on the right where translations should be. Vivian's phone buzzed. The freelance translator. Stuck in traffic. Accident on I-95. Not going to make it. Sorry. Her heart stopped. Garrett saw her face. She showed him the phone. He went pale. Technical difficulties, Vivian announced. She muted the microphones. We're dead. We have nothing. Bridget pulled out her iPad. I have a translation app. It's not perfect. Do it, Vivian said. No choice. Bridget activated the app. The European woman started speaking French. Rapid, technical, legal terminology. The app's robotic voice translated. The contract stipulation of the provision for the intellectual proprietary of the subsidiary management under... The French woman stopped. Are you using a phone application? Vivian's face burned. It's temporary. This is unacceptable. The woman's voice was sharp. We are discussing $2 billion and you're using Google Translate? The Chinese executives talked heatedly in Mandarin. Their body language showed frustration. The assistant spoke again. Mr. Zhang says previous email communication from Vanguard contained offensive language. It translated to subordinate partnership, not equal partnership. This app translation confirms his concerns about cultural respect. Vivian's stomach dropped. That was a mistake. A miscommunication. Mistakes in translation cost millions, the German woman said coldly. How can we trust contract language? A European man leaned forward. Perhaps we should postpone until Vanguard is better prepared. No, please, Vivian said, desperation bleeding through. Give us 15 minutes. The Chinese CEO stood up. He spoke in Mandarin, his tone firm. The assistant translated. Mr. Zhang thanks you for your time. However, he does not believe this partnership is viable. The Chinese window went black. The European woman shook her head. I think we're finished. Goodbye, Miss Ashford. The screen went dark. Vivian stared at the empty display. 3 years of work, $2 billion, gone. Garrett stood up. I'm calling them back. With what? Vivian's voice was dead. We have nothing. We have Alden. I said no. Then we're done. The company is over. 200 employees lose their jobs, all because you're too proud. Garrett pulled out his phone. I'm the COO. I'm making an executive decision. He walked out. Bridget followed. Vivian sat alone, staring at the dark screen. Down in the garage, Alden's phone rang. This is Garrett Sullivan. I need you in the conference room, right now. Don't change clothes, don't ask questions, just come. Alden stood, grabbed his phone, headed for the elevator. His heart pounded. The elevator doors opened on the 32nd floor. Alden stepped out in his coffee-stained uniform. The brown spots had dried into dark patches. He walked down the hallway. 3 years invisible, now summoned. Garrett stood outside the conference room, phone pressed to his ear. Yes, 15 minutes. That's all I'm asking. He saw Alden and waved him over. He's here now, I'll set it up. Garrett hung up. I got them back on the line, barely. They're giving us one chance, 15 minutes. Understood. The Chinese team is furious about last week's translation error. The Europeans think we're amateurs. And Vivian... He glanced toward the conference room. She's not happy. I understand. Garrett put a hand on his shoulder. Show them what you can do. They entered together. Vivian sat at the head of the table, rigid. Bridget stood near the wall. The screen showed both groups of executives, impatient, annoyed. Vivian's eyes locked on Alden. Her expression was ice. Garrett gestured to a chair. "Please, sit." Alden remained standing. "I prefer to stand, sir." Garrett unmuted the microphone. "Thank you for rejoining us. I'd like to introduce Alden Thornton, our senior cultural liaison and translator." On screen, the executives looked skeptical. A black man in a stained driver's uniform. The German woman spoke first. In German. "This is your solution. I don't mean to be rude, but this looks worse than before." A test. Alden responded immediately in German. Perfect accent. Native level. "I understand your concern, ma'am. My appearance is unconventional, but I assure you my qualifications are not. I have 22 years of diplomatic translation experience, including 12 years with German legal and business terminology. I'm familiar with your consortium's renewable energy work and your Stuttgart acquisition." The woman's eyebrows shot up. Alden continued in German. "I also want to address last week's translation error. The phrase rendered as subordinate partnership should have been co-equal strategic partnership. Machine translation error. It does not reflect Vanguard's respect for your organization." He turned to the Chinese executives. "Switch to Mandarin, perfect Beijing dialect, proper business register. Zhangxian Sheng, I deeply apologize for the disrespect in that communication. It was unintentional, but intention does not erase offense. Vanguard Dynamics has profound respect for your 40-year legacy." The Chinese CEO's expression shifted. Surprise. He leaned forward. Alden continued in Mandarin. "I understand you studied business philosophy at Tokyo School of Business in the 1990s. I spent 3 years in Tokyo during State Department service. I have great respect for Shinrai. Deep trust built through consistent, honorable action." Mr. Zhang's eyes widened. He spoke in Mandarin, curious now. "You know about my time in Tokyo?" "I made it my business to learn about Vanguard's potential partners," Alden replied in Mandarin. "Respect requires knowledge." Mr. Zhang sat back. He spoke to his colleagues in rapid Mandarin. They nodded. Alden turned to the Europeans, switched to French. "I acknowledge your concerns about Vanguard's organizational capabilities. You're right to question our preparation. Today's difficulties are unacceptable, but they don't define our potential." The German woman exchanged glances with her French colleague. Vivian sat frozen, hands gripping her chair, face pale. She was watching the man she'd called just a driver command a room of international executives in 3 languages, perfectly. The French representative leaned toward his microphone. In French, "Your pronunciation is excellent. Where did you study?" Alden smiled slightly. "Georgetown School of Foreign Service. 3 years at the French Embassy during the Obama administration." "Impressive." The man made a note. Mr. Zhang spoke in Mandarin. "Tell me about the technical aspects. The patents Vanguard is offering?" Alden switched to Mandarin. "The primary assets are quantum computing patents for error correction in qubit systems, specifically topological quantum error correction methods reducing decoherence rates by 60%. He paused. "These complement your quantum networking technology. Combined, they create an integrated system for secure quantum communication across metropolitan distances." Mr. Zhang's CFO spoke up in Mandarin. "You understand quantum computing? I've listened to Miss Ashford's earnings calls and technical briefings for 3 years. I made it my business to understand Vanguard's technology." Vivian's head snapped toward Alden, eyes wide. The CFO asked about patent licensing structures. Alden answered smoothly in Mandarin, explaining the legal framework with technical accuracy and cultural appropriateness. The German woman spoke in German. "What about financial structure, equity distribution?" Alden responded in German. "Tripartite agreement. Vanguard retains 42%. Your consortium receives 33%. Mr. Zhang's company gets 25%. Distribution reflects capital investment and strategic value." He switched to French. "The French legal framework you prefer, based on bonne foi, good faith partnership, is incorporated. Equal voting rights on major decisions regardless of equity." Back to Mandarin. "The structure respects amanah, trustworthiness, from Arabic business culture, which I know you studied during graduate work. Financial reporting will be transparent and simultaneous." Silence. Mr. Zhang stared through the screen, then smiled. Actually smiled. He spoke in Mandarin. the assistant translated. Mr. Zhang says this is the first time in 3 years someone from Vanguard has understood what he actually cares about. The German woman nodded. I agree. This feels like real partnership discussion. She looked at Alden. Can you translate the full contract? All sections? Technical, legal, financial? Yes, ma'am. Fluently and accurately across Mandarin, German, and French. Then let's proceed. Mr. Zhang nodded. Agreed. Garrett exhaled. Bridget's hands shook, pulling up contract documents. Vivian sat at the table head, watching Alden Thornton, her driver, the man she'd humiliated that morning, save her company. She couldn't look away. For the first time in 3 years, she really saw him. What she saw terrified her. Not because of what he was doing, but because of what she'd almost thrown away. For the next hour, Alden translated. Contract section by section. Technical specifications, legal clauses, financial terms. He moved between languages like breathing. Mandarin for Mr. Zhang, German for the consortium's lawyers, French for their financial advisors, each translation precise, culturally appropriate. The executives leaned forward, engaged, questions flowed. Alden answered. The conversation worked. Vivian sat silent, watching, mind racing. At 2:15 p.m., they reached Section 8. Intellectual Property Rights. Randall Hayes, VP of Business Development, entered the conference room. He'd been absent the first hour. Now he slid into a chair beside Vivian, carrying a folder. Sorry I'm late, he whispered. How's it going? Better than expected, Garrett said quietly. Randall glanced at Alden, then the screen. His jaw tightened. The German woman asked about patent valuation methodology. Alden began answering in German. Randall interrupted. Actually, I should clarify those numbers. The patent valuation is 450 million, not 420 million. Alden paused. Sir, the documentation stated 420 million. Updated this morning, Randall said smoothly. I have revised figures. He slid paper across the table. Alden glanced at it. The number said 450 million. Something felt wrong. He looked at Garrett. Can you confirm this revision? Garrett frowned. I haven't seen any revision. It came through legal this morning, Randall said. Emergency adjustment. The German woman spoke in German. What is the delay? Is there a problem? Alden noticed something on Randall's paper. The date. 3 days ago, not this morning. He pulled out his phone and opened the company database, searched for patent valuation updates. Nothing from this morning. But there was a document from 3 days ago. He opened it. 420 million, not 450 million. Alden looked at Randall. Understanding clicked. The correct figure is 420 million, Alden said in German. There has been no revision. Randall's face darkened. I just told you. The document you provided is 3 days old and was never board approved, Alden said calmly. I have the actual approved valuation, 420 million. He switched to Mandarin and repeated the correct figure. The German woman looked concerned. Is Vanguard inflating patent value? No, ma'am, Alden said in German. A miscommunication. The correct valuation is 420 million. He confirmed the same in French for the other representatives. Mr. Zhang spoke in Mandarin. We need accuracy, not number games. I completely agree, Alden replied in Mandarin. 420 million. That is the accurate board-approved figure. Garrett pulled up official documents on his tablet. Alden is correct. 420 million. Sending documentation now. Randall stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. I was helping. By providing false numbers? Garrett's voice was sharp. Randall's face flushed. He grabbed his folder and walked out. The door slammed. Alden took a breath, turned to the screen, switched to German. I apologize for the confusion. The correct figure is documented. Shall we continue? The German woman studied him, then nodded. Yes, continue. Crisis averted, barely. Another 30 minutes passed. The contract progressed smoothly. Then they hit Section 12, Partnership Governance and Decision-Making Authority. The German legal expert read in German. The clause regarding ultimate decision authority in unresolved disputes. The English says binding arbitration, but this doesn't translate cleanly into our legal framework. Alden translated into Mandarin. Mr. Zhang's attorney responded in Mandarin. In Chinese contract law, we use final authority resolution, but that implies hierarchy, not partnership. Alden translated into German. The French financial advisor spoke in French. In French legal tradition, we use mediation obligatoire, mandatory mediation, but that's not arbitration. The three groups talked over each other. German, Mandarin, French, each explaining their legal framework. The translations created more confusion, not less. Alden held up his hand. "One moment, please." The room quieted. He thought. The problem wasn't words, it was concepts. Each legal system approached disputes differently. Arbitration meant something different in each culture. The German woman spoke in German. Perhaps separate clauses, but that takes weeks. "We don't have weeks," Mr. Zhang said in Mandarin. Sharp, frustrated, the European members were conferring. Their body language showed doubt. Mr. Zhang's team argued in heated Mandarin. Vivian leaned toward Garrett, whispered, "We're losing them." Garrett looked at Alden, helpless. The German woman spoke again. "I think we need to pause, bring in specialized legal translators. This is too complex." "If we pause, we lose momentum," the French advisor said. "The deal collapses." Mr. Zhang stood, his face hard. He spoke in Mandarin. "This confirms my concern. We don't speak the same language, not just words, concepts. How can we be partners if we can't agree on how to resolve disagreements?" His hand moved toward the disconnect button. Alden's mind raced. 3 legal systems, 3 different concepts, no direct translation, but maybe there was a bridge, a concept existing across all 3 cultures, something universal. He took a breath. "Wait," he said, in Mandarin first, then German, then French. "Please, I have a solution." Mr. Zhang's hand paused. "What solution? There is no word that means the same in all 3 languages." "You're right," Alden said. "But there is a principle that exists in all 3 cultures." Everyone looked at him. "Let me explain," Alden said. The room went silent. Alden looked at each group on the screen. Then he spoke. In Japanese. There is a concept in Japanese business philosophy called shinrai. It means deep trust, not surface-level trust based on contracts, but trust built through consistent, honorable action over time. He looked at Mr. Zhang. "You studied at Tokyo School of Business in the 1990s. You learned about shinrai there." Mr. Zhang's eyes widened. He nodded slowly. Alden continued in Japanese. "Shinrai recognizes that disputes will happen, partners will disagree, but the relationship is stronger than any single disagreement. The trust itself becomes the resolution mechanism." He switched to Mandarin. In Chinese business culture, this aligns with the principle of guanxi, relationship-based trust. When disputes arise, the relationship guides the solution, not rigid rules, not hierarchy, the shared commitment to the partnership. Mr. Zhang leaned forward, listening intently. Alden turned to the European side, switched to French. In French legal tradition, you have the principle of bonne foi, good faith. It appears in Article 1104 of the French Civil Code. It requires all parties to act honestly and fairly throughout the contract's life. The French advisor nodded. "Yes, exactly." Alden continued in French. Bonne foi doesn't just mean following the contract words. It means honoring the contract's spirit. When ambiguity arises, good faith requires choosing the interpretation that serves the partnership, not individual advantage. He switched to German. In German contract law, you have Treu und Glauben, loyalty and faith, paragraph 242 of the BGB. It operates similarly. It requires fairness, reasonableness, acting in the partnership's best interest. The German woman was writing notes rapidly. Alden took a breath. "Now, there is one more principle I want to mention, from Arabic business culture, the concept of amana, trustworthiness." He switched to Arabic, fluid. "Perfect. Amana means being a faithful custodian. When partners entrust you with their interests, you guard those interests as if they were your own. You don't seek advantage. You seek mutual success." He looked at Mr. Zhang again, spoke in Mandarin. "You studied Amana during your graduate work on international business ethics. You wrote a paper comparing it to Japanese shinrai." Mr. Zhang's mouth fell open. "How do you know that?" "Because I read it, sir. It was published in the Journal of Cross-Cultural Business Studies in 1998. It was brilliant." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Alden addressed all three groups. He spoke in English, but slowly, letting his words settle. What you all have, Shinrai, Guanxi, Bonafoi, Treu und Glauben, Amana, they're different words, different legal frameworks, but they're the same principle. Trust-based partnership. When disputes arise, you don't need arbitration or mediation or hierarchy. You need commitment to act in good faith, to honor the relationship, to protect each other's interests. He paused. So here's what I propose. The contract clause should read, in the event of unresolved disputes, all parties commit to good faith resolution guided by the principles of mutual trust, shared success, and partnership preservation. Each party pledges to act as a faithful custodian of the collective interest. Silence. Then Alden added in Mandarin, this honors Guanxi. In German, this satisfies Treu und Glauben. In French, this embodies bonne foi. In Japanese, this reflects Shinrai. In Arabic, this demonstrates Amana. Mr. Zhang sat back in his chair. He looked at his attorneys, spoke in Mandarin. They nodded. He turned to the camera. This is acceptable. The German woman looked at her French colleague. They both nodded. This works for us, she said. The French advisor smiled. Parfait. Perfect. Garrett exhaled audibly. Bridget's hand covered her mouth, eyes shining. And Vivian stared at Alden Thornton, her driver, the man she'd thrown coffee at, who had just solved an impossible problem by speaking 5 languages and understanding 3 legal systems and knowing a research paper from 1998. She couldn't speak, couldn't move. She just watched. They continued, section by section. The contract was enormous. Dense technical language, legal terminology, financial structures. But now the momentum had shifted. The groups trusted Alden. They asked him questions directly, deferred to his translations, relied on his explanations. At 3:45 p.m., they reached the technical appendix, patent specifications, quantum computing architectures, neural network designs, blockchain protocols. The Chinese technical lead asked a question in Mandarin, complex, about qubit error correction rates in specific temperature ranges. Alden answered in Mandarin, perfectly, using terminology that would normally require a specialized technical translator. The German engineer asked a follow-up, in German, about the mathematical proofs underlying the error correction algorithms. Alden switched to German, explained the mathematics, the proofs, the theoretical foundations. The French technology advisor looked skeptical. He asked in French how Alden could possibly know this level of technical detail. Alden smiled slightly. For 3 years, I've driven Miss Ashford to and from work. Every day, I've listened to her phone calls, her meetings, her technical briefings, her quarterly earnings presentations. He paused. I heard every word, every explanation, every technical discussion. I didn't just drive. I learned. Vivian's face went pale. Alden continued. I learned about topological quantum error correction, about blockchain consensus mechanisms, about neural network pruning techniques. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to understand the company I worked for. He looked at the screen. So when you ask me to translate technical specifications, I'm not guessing. I understand what these patents actually do, what they're worth, why they matter. Mr. Zhang's technical lead asked another question, even more complex, about the integration between quantum systems and classical computing architectures. Alden answered in Mandarin, then switched to German to explain a related concept to the European engineers, then to French to clarify a legal implication of the technical capability. He moved between languages and between technical domains, quantum physics, computer science, electrical engineering, patent law, as if they were all the same language. The executives on screen were no longer just listening. They were amazed. And in the conference room, Vivian Ashford finally understood what she'd had in her parking garage for 3 years. Not just a driver, a weapon. At 4:30 p.m., they finished. Every section translated, every question answered, every concern addressed. The contract was complete. Mr. Zhang stood. He spoke in Mandarin, his voice warm. I would like to propose a toast. His assistant brought tea. The European representatives raised coffee cups. In the conference room, Garrett grabbed water bottles, handed them to Vivian, Bridget, and Alden. Mr. Zhang continued in Mandarin. Today, I expected failure. Instead, I found something rare, a true professional, A man who understands not just languages, but cultures. Not just words, but meaning. He raised his cup. To Alden Thornton, without you, this partnership would not exist. The Chinese executives raised their cups, smiled, nodded toward the camera. The German woman spoke. I agree completely. Mr. Thornton, I have worked with translators across 4 continents for 20 years. I have never met anyone with your skill and cultural intelligence. We request you specifically for all future negotiations. The French advisor nodded. Absolutely. We insist. You are now part of this partnership. On screen, all 9 executives looked at Alden. Respect in their eyes. Garrett stood. To Alden, the man who saved Vanguard Dynamics. Bridget raised her bottle, tears streaming, and Vivian sat frozen. The camera crews for the press release were still recording. This moment, executives from 3 continents toasting a black man in a stained driver's uniform was being captured for the official announcement, for the public record. Vivian had no choice. She stood slowly, raised her bottle. Her hand shook. To Alden, she said, barely a whisper. Everyone drank. Mr. Zhang spoke again in Mandarin. Miss Ashford, you have an extraordinary asset in Mr. Thornton. I hope you recognize his value. Alden translated, his voice steady. I do, Vivian said. The words felt like glass. I absolutely do. But Mr. Zhang wasn't finished. He continued in Mandarin, his tone pointed. In Chinese business culture, we say, a wise leader sees the jewel even when covered in dust. A foolish leader only sees the dust. Alden translated this too. The words hung in the air. Mr. Zhang smiled, but his eyes were sharp. He knew. The German woman spoke. We'll send final contract language tonight. Mr. Thornton, please review all translations before we sign. We trust your judgment. Of course, Alden said. Then we're finished. Thank you all. The screens went dark. Garrett grabbed Alden's hand, shook it hard. You did it! Bridget was crying and smiling, and Vivian stood at the table staring at Alden Thornton, the man she'd humiliated that morning, the man who'd just saved everything. 30 minutes later, Garrett and Bridget left, celebrating, making calls. The conference room emptied, except for Vivian and Alden. She sat. He stood near the door, the same distance they'd always kept. Why? Vivian said, her voice raw. Why what, ma'am? Why didn't you ever tell me about your languages, your experience? Alden was quiet for a moment. I did tell you, ma'am. 3 years ago. I applied for a translator position. I listed everything. Georgetown, Stanford, 22 years State Department, 9 languages. Vivian's stomach dropped. I never saw that application. HR saw it. They rejected me. Too qualified, too expensive, too old. His voice was calm. 2 weeks later, I applied for driver. That one they accepted. But why not say something in 3 years? Would you have listened? Silence. I heard how you talked about service workers, ma'am. Just the cleaning crew. Just the maintenance guy. Just the driver. People like me were invisible. Interchangeable. Vivian felt tears burning. This morning, Alden continued quietly, you threw coffee at me. Called me just a driver. Told me to know my place. He paused. If I'd told you yesterday I speak 9 languages, would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was being uppity? The word landed like a slap. I would have. Vivian stopped. Because she knew. She wouldn't have believed him. She would have dismissed him. My mother had stage 4 cancer, Alden said softly. Treatment cost $300,000. My daughter was starting medical school, $250,000 in tuition. I needed work, any work. I didn't have the luxury of pride. He looked at his stained uniform. I took the job offered. I did it well. I stayed quiet. I survived. He met her eyes. That's what people like me do, ma'am. We survive. Vivian couldn't speak. Alden walked to the door, stopped, turned back. For what it's worth, I'm glad I could help today. The company deserves to survive too. He left, and Vivian sat alone in the empty room, understanding everything. 6 months later, Alden Thornton sat in a corner office on the 32nd floor, Executive Vice President of Global Cultural Intelligence. Annual salary, $320,000, plus equity. His office had 3 monitors, live feeds from Singapore, Mumbai, and Berlin. His division, 28 specialists across 6 continents, had prevented 8 diplomatic crises and closed deals worth $650 million. The door opened. Vivian walked in. Their relationship had changed. Not friends, maybe never friends, but something honest, something real. The Samsung CEO called, Vivian said. They found a PhD working as their night janitor, former AI researcher. They want to know how to handle it right. Alden smiled. Tell them to start by apologizing, then start by listening. Vivian nodded. She'd heard him say this dozens of times now, to executives worldwide. Also, the board approved your hidden talent initiative, full funding, company-wide implementation. In 6 months, they discovered 14 overqualified employees at Vanguard, a former NASA engineer in facilities, a patent attorney working reception, a molecular biologist in the mailroom. All of them had been drowning, surviving, invisible. Now they were promoted, valued, seen. One more thing, Vivian said. She handed him an envelope. Alden opened it. A check, his daughter's name on it. What's this? Sarah's medical school tuition, all 4 years, paid in full. Vivian's voice was quiet. It's not charity. It's what I should have done 3 years ago. Alden stared at the check. His hands trembled slightly. I can't change the past, Vivian said. I can't take back what I said, what I did, but I can do better now. She turned to leave, stopped at the door. Thank you, Alden, for saving the company, for teaching me to see people, for giving me a second chance I didn't deserve. Alden looked up. Everyone deserves a second chance, Miss Ashford. That's the whole point. After she left, Alden sat alone in his office. He looked at the picture on his desk. His daughter Sarah in her white coat, a pediatrician now, following her dream. His phone rang. Another CEO, another company, another hidden talent discovered. Alden answered. Let me tell you how this works, he said, and the ripple continued. Right now, someone is serving your coffee who speaks 4 languages, someone cleaning your office who has an engineering degree, someone driving your car who used to run international negotiations. Their talents are invisible, not because they lack skills, but because you haven't looked. Tomorrow morning, ask the person who serves you. Really ask about their background, their education, their story. You might discover a genius hiding in plain sight. You might change a life, or you might change your own. The question isn't whether talent exists around you. It does. The question is, will you see it? Share this story if you've ever been underestimated. Comment about hidden talent you've discovered. Subscribe if you believe everyone deserves to be seen for who they really are. Because the next Alden Thornton might be right in front of you, invisible, waiting for someone to finally look.